Let's bring Tone on the segment.
Big Sills, how we feeling today, sir?
Disappointed.
Me too. You know, I feel like this game, the game plan should have been pretty simple, right? And I don't want to take anything from the Jets. Their defense made plays, but the reality is they were handed that football game yesterday. And the Philadelphia Eagles did everything to lose that game. You can't turn the ball over 4 times. It's just that simple. Jalen Hurts, that can't happen under any circumstance. Play calling aside, I don't care if you disagree with the play call is. I don't care if you don't like what's going on. You can't turn the ball over 4 times, first and foremost. Next, Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni. What was the game plan going into this game? What was the objective? Because I understand that the numbers are a little skewed because the Jets defense has been on the field 70% of the time, and I understand that. But the reality is they're giving the numbers up. They're giving it up. So I have to rely on that. They're giving it up. So in that case, I'm going to go with the trend. I'm going to lean on my strengths. And on top of that, when Lane Johnson went down, now your entire right side is pretty much makeshift. Why force those guys to drop back 45 times? Why force those guys to backpedal 45 times? I understand they only gave up 2 sacks as a unit. But the reality is Jalen Hurts was running for his life. In that first half, Jalen Hurts was making throws. I'm like, that's the $50 million throw. That's like, he had a throw where he literally was stiff-arming a linebacker while he pinpointed to the sideline of A.J. Brown. It was a beautiful throw, one of his best throws I've ever seen. But the reality is they allowed this game to get away from them because they panicked in the second half. And you just can't have that. And this coaching staff, this offensive coaching staff specifically, because you're right, Sean Desai, he is continuing to get better and continuing to make do with what he has. But this offensive coaching staff, they're arrogant, they're prideful, they're egotistical, and they can't get out of their own way, and they're going to be the death of Jalen Hurts.
Do you believe that they're the reason why he's regressing? And I want to throw this, what you just said. This is why I said this. They made this decision on a Saturday night that they were going to throw the ball 45 times because their corners were out. And that's the approach they took. Instead of waiting to get to the game to see how those coordinators, hey, look, if Sean Desai can cover issues that he has in his secondary, what makes you think that Robert Saleh's not going to have a way to disguise issues in his secondary? That is so arrogant thinking on a Saturday night eating pizza, how you're going to approach a game before you even get into the game and get a feel for the game. Then on top of that, you completely abandon your running attack. You're second in the freaking league. Hey, if your right side is gone, go to Mulata and Landon Dickerson and Jason Kelsey and with Goddard over there and power run them guys into the ground. They could not adjust in any way whatsoever. They had more high turnover plays. And I don't know what it is.
The Jets could have
their
more
energy
right
to
away.
get Jalen these passing yards over winning. It really, his passing attempts, as you said, are getting more and more each week.
Each and every single week. The first week, I think he threw the ball 23, 25 times. And then ever since then, it's been above 30, 32, 32, 37. Now he threw the ball 45 times. It's been increasing every single week. Look, I'm not in the mindset that I need to turn Jalen Hurts into a Justin Herbert or turn him into a Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen, these guys that throw the ball 40-plus times a game. Or I'm not in the business of doing that. You didn't pay him because of that. The contract you gave him, he didn't earn that contract based off those kind of numbers. He earned that contract because he has this uncanny ability to create plays off schedule. He's an improviser. He's a dual threat quarterback that knows how to win with his arm and knows how to win with his legs. Why take that away from him? Why try to turn him into something that he's not? And it's so frustrating to watch because you see this young man just trying to be coachable, trying to go with the flow. And again, you can't turn the ball over 4 times, but the reality is I'm not a fan of Brian Johnson right now. I'm trying to support him. You know what I'm saying? Not too many brothers get opportunities like that. I'm trying to keep it real. I'm gonna keep it real with you, Sil. Not too many brothers get opportunities like that. So I'm trying to ride with him. I'm trying to. But the reality is he's not delivering. And as a matter of fact, he's hurting Jalen Hurts. Nick Sirianni hurting them. He's hurting him. Like, again, we talked about this on Friday, Sills. I don't know if you remember what I said, but I said this. I said, look, let's not overcomplicate this game plan here. We understand where the Jets are struggling. Take advantage of it.
I wanted
And
48 rushing
They
attempts.
took the bait. They took the bait. I don't care who's out. Like you said, coaches get paid too. They're going to find a way to supplement the loss of Sauce Gardner and those other guys, right? And they took the bait. Instead of really leaning on their offensive line and just punishing the Jets at the line of scrimmage, they allowed their offensive line to backpedal 45 times and allowed that Jets defense to gain a head of steam.
Too much A.J. Brown?
I'll put it to you like this, right? It would be an issue if he wasn't producing for me, right? That would be the issue if they were just trying to force feed him and he just wasn't making plays or it was leading to turnovers. For me, I look at it like A.J. Brown has been your most productive weapon. I think the real problem isn't necessarily A.J. Brown. The problem is the coaches drawing up these plays that only go to A.J. Brown, which is leading your quarterback to favor him. They have this issue trying to get everybody involved efficiently and effectively. They can't string together plays getting the other guys involved. It seems like when all else fails, oh, let's go to A.J. Brown. He's automatic. That's not how this game works. Teams are going to catch on to it. You got to use all your weapons, man. Jalen Hurts did about 45 times. Goddard had like 8 targets. Swift had 10. Smith had 11. A.J. Brown had the least amount of targets out of all those guys, but he just managed to make do. So I can't really get mad at A.J. Brown for being productive.
Yeah,
but the reality
those
is
guys
the coaches
are the only people making big plays so far this year. I can't really remember Devontae making gigantic plays or I
put that on coaches though. It's the concepts they're drawing up for those other guys versus AJ.
But Tone, what you do is you funnel your defensive approach towards those two. You want to get Swift and that guy involved. You know how the Eagle coaches helped out the Jet coaches? They abandoned Swift and they went like this. Hey, AJ wants to catch him. That interception, man, he was eyeballing the guy right down. I mean,
it was double coverage. It was double coverage. He stared at it so long. You know, that was a throw. That throw, and the moment I saw that throw happen, I said to myself, Jalen Hurts fell in love with his arm on that play. He fell in love with his arm on that throw. It was a double coverage. The linebackers and the linebacker and the nickel were just waiting. And he stared him down and he threw it anyway. He actually could have took off and ran. I would have been all right with it. But, you know, look, the reality is this, right? You know, losses come on the schedule. And the bigger issue, well, the real issue is not even the loss. The real issue is what's going on with this offensive coaching staff. That's the real issue, not the loss. The coaching staff is the real issue. Sean Desai's doing his thing. But Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, they concern me in the long run.
Man, I don't get the fundamental thinking process that they have. Now, Tone, this is why, you know.
Wait, so real quick. So I'm sorry. They're running away from who they are. That's what the issue is. They're running away from who they don't want to. It's like looking in the mirror and not being happy with what you see. You got to love yourself. You got to understand what you are. The Eagles are a power run team that just set up the pass off the run. That's how they won last year.
Didn't this shit go on with Doug? Didn't this shit go on with Doug
towards the end?
How they won games and how the Eagles wanted to air the game out more. And Doug wanted a pounding ground, and he wanted to just like kill teams with being physical. And didn't the front office even have a problem with him when he was doing those things?
Yep, it was the Green Bay matchup. The Eagles were very physical with the Green Bay Packers. The Green Bay Packers couldn't do anything physically with them, and the Eagles ended up winning the game. But they won that game more so because they had a high-powered rushing attack that day, and they utilized the running backs in the passing game more so than the other guys. And the reality is, Doug had to answer for that. He had to have that conversation with those guys upstairs. And my thing is, why?
Shit. Again, that's meddling. That's meddling. Now,
Jalen Hurts didn't earn the contract throwing the ball 50 times a game. I don't get it.
You think Hurts was rattled on the sideline?
No, I think he was visibly frustrated, and I think he looked at it as I have to do better. I don't think he was rattled. He looked like somebody that was fed up. I'll put it to you that way. He looked fed up.
Yeah, that's how I took it. I didn't take rattled. I took it more so that he's like, "What are we doing here? Why are we abandoning this? How about this? Have him run. You know what, Two-Tone? Get this. Maybe this is what they were afraid of. When they realized that they lost the lane, that they didn't want to get this guy an opportunity to get injured, they would rather not have him get injured like the Chicago game. They would rather lose that game, get out of that game, without having him have to carry the ball 15 to 17 times. I'm going to make a point to you, Tone. If Jalen Hurts runs that ball 17 times, the Eagles win that ball game.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. How many times did he run in this game? I got to double check that. He ran. Oh man, how many times did he run in this game?
8.
He ran 8 times in that game. Wow. He ran more in LA. And again,
and he looked like Jalen Hurts.
That was the one game this year that he looked like himself. Every other game, he's looked like this guy that they're trying to turn him into. Again, I don't care about. I don't know. I don't understand what's going on. Remember, Nick Sirianni comes from that school of the Phillip Rivers and all that kind of stuff. That's where he comes from. That's what he's used to. So I'm looking at Brian Johnson like you were here last year and you were here the year before this. How are you trying to force feed what you want to happen on a quarterback? And he's showing you who he is and what he's capable of and what makes him comfortable. Jalen Hurts has looked comfortable in one game. Well, a game and a half. He's looked comfortable. But other than that, it seems like he's not fully on board with what's going on here, and he's just trying to be coachable, trying to keep his head down, trying to lead his team and trust his coaches. But I have right now today, I have no trust in Brian Johnson. I have no trust in Nick Sirianni. Short aside is the only guy that I trust to actually do something with what he's given. You said something earlier in the show. The moment Brian Johnson got off of that script, the moment that those first couple series went away, who did he become? He turned back into a pumpkin.
Yeah. When that 19-play drive, like in the New England game, I'm like, well-designed plays. Everything was great. They were fundamentally pounding the ball. They were looking like all of a sudden when they had to start coordinating in the game and they had to start being situational play callers, that thing fell apart. It just completely fell apart. Now, you also have to put this into context. No Slay, no Ricks, no Blankenship, no Jalen Carter, no Lane Johnson. Milton Williams was out. Roby. I mean, when you lose talent like that and you go into a game like that, and you're going like this as coaches. Well, they lost their corners. Hoss, this is a coin flip game now.
This is
NFL. Is a coin flip game. And then when you give them 4 turnovers because you're going high percentage turnover plays with more passes than run, you are giving them a remedy for losing. Like I said, Tone, everything started becoming to be predictable as the game went on. The only thing that wasn't predictable was the field goal kicker missing that field goal late in the game. I'm cool with the guy because that guy has won a ton of games for you, and he's going to continue to win. Dude, that whole thing was so outcoached, and when
it was embarrassing.
You thought you still had better personnel than the Jets when you lost all those names I mentioned. You didn't. Your entire right side was gone in your O-line. Your star D tackle was gone. Your corner was gone. I mean, then you started losing your safeties. And you know what? Look, if you notice today, I didn't really kill the Kobe because I didn't think he killed them. I didn't think he was great.
I'll say this about that, right? I had an issue with what they were doing in the first half. There was, I don't know if you remember, but there was a play or a moment where they got caught up with 12 men on the field on defense. That didn't happen at all season. You want to know why it happened?
Communication.
Zach Cunningham couldn't get off the field. Why couldn't he get off the field? Because because they were force feeding this Nakobe Dean thing, trying to rotate him in.
You see Zach Cunningham loaf off the field too? He loafed. And by the way, AJ, run the effing route.
He shouldn't have slowed down there.
Run the route. He would have put it right in his hands.
That goes back to your point about always assume the ball is coming to you. Always assume that. Because even the announcer said you could tell he didn't think that ball was coming to him. He slowed down and he tried to speed up.
Mark Sanchez said, why did he stop?
He stopped.
It would have went right into his hands.
Touchdown. Easy money. That game, I understand Jalen Hurts turned the ball 3 times, and you cannot do that. 3 interceptions, you cannot do it. But at the same time, I feel like he was let down in so many different ways. His coaching staff let him down. A.J. Brown let him down on that bomb. Devontae Smith let him down on 2 or 3 key third down conversions. That cannot happen. It can't when you're wide open. It just can't happen.
Hey, Tone, correct me if I'm wrong here. So it's about 1:34 left in the game, and you're up 17. What was it? 17-12?
It was 14-12.
Okay, you have the game. It's third down conversion. Whose mindset was it that it was third and long? Was it 3rd and 11 or 3rd and 8 or something like that? That kick happened?
Yeah.
Who called that play? Did it? How about this? Let's just do it. Let's just play a game here. Say you called that play. Isn't it the head coach's responsibility to do this? Whoa, wait a minute. I'd rather take the fucking penalty and punt the ball and take a delay of game than fucking put my team in a position where I got the look. I've lost all these names here. Guys aren't playing well. I got Lane out. We're winning. All we have to do is get 2 first downs. They don't have any timeouts.
Even beyond that, if you do punt it, your defense has been playing pretty good. Trust them. But no, you wanted to force feed it. I would have much rather them punt that ball and, you know what, let your defense get a stop.
Who's calling that?
Zach Wilson didn't drive that entire field not one time.
No way.
Not one time.
He couldn't.
They
wasn't going to beat you.
They were kicking field goals all day. And then they got the one touchdown that you gave them because you felt like, okay, my offense can drive down the field and you wanted to preserve the clock. Okay, whatever. But the bottom line is Zach Wilson didn't drive the whole field not one time. They passed the ball 3 times in a row to stop that clock. They should have ran the ball, drained the clock, and you know what? Make Zach Wilson beat you. I can live with that.
And he ain't.
He wasn't going to beat you.
He
did nothing to impress me yesterday. All he did,
which is you punt the ball, you put them back on their 20. You think Zach Wilson is driving with Reddick the way and Sweat the way they were and Davis the way they were coming on that O-line? You really think that guy was driving 80 yards to kick a field goal and beat you? No chance in hell were they coming back and beat. Not a chance in hell. No, they needed a touchdown, right? There was not a chance in hell they were putting that in the end zone. Okay? But Mike, again, what I want to know, here's an in-game situation, Tone, where you have to question leadership on the sideline. Okay, let's just say Brian Johnson, inexperienced, he calls that play. It goes into Jalen. Doesn't the head coach, who is a former play caller, doesn't he question that? You have the lead on the road, and you're the second best rushing attack in the league. Your passing game has been up and down all year. Don't you just want to get the win and go home and get on the bus and go back to Philly? And then the quarterback. Why does the quarterback? This is where Jalen needs to have a little more balls. And what I mean by balls is, hey, sometimes a quarterback and a head coach have disagreements. Not everything has to be the way you call it. And because he's so well coached and he respects coaching so much, he thinks, and I'm wondering why the frustration on the sidelines, you see it in his face, if it's starting to wear on him now, because he's got to be sitting there going, why, man? What was the reason? There's no fundamental reasoning why they did that. A punt is part of the offense too, Tone. This is a field position sport. Like you said, Zach Wilson, if Aaron Rodgers, that's one thing. Zach Wilson put the shittiest quarterback. Let me ask you this. So wasn't the Jets the 32nd ranked passing offense in the NFL coming into that game?
The worst.
Did you really think they were going 80 yards and beating you with 1:10 left in the game with no timeouts?
And this is what
Instead,
I'm saying.
You get a turnover. He almost puts it in the end zone, and it's game.
And this is why I'm a Doug Peterson guy, because Doug Peterson doesn't do dumb stuff like that. Doug Peterson does what it takes to win. Listen, Nick has been productive as the head coach for the Philadelphia Eagles, right? He has a really good record, all that kind of stuff, right? You know, he's a motivator. He's a people guy, whatever it is. But the reality is, man, there's something about his in-game decision making. There's something about that just drives me nuts at the worst possible times, man. And then look, again, I'm not letting Brian Johnson off the hook. Like, and you brought up a good point too. Jalen Hurts, he should have said, "Hold up, time's out." It's less than 2 minutes left in the game. They have no timeouts. Why are we passing the ball? Why? Like that should have been a moment where he said, "Listen, I'm the $50 million guy. Okay, I'm going to be here. You guys are expendable. What are we doing out here? Really? Let's just get the win and go home. Let's just get the win." But you know, again, this loss happens. But the bigger issue is not the loss. The bigger issue is, where does this coaching staff go from here on offense? Because they got the Miami Dolphins next week, Sills.
You trust that? Hey, do you truly trust the coaching staff as a whole versus Vic Fangio and that Mike McDaniel kid?
No. If I'm being honest with you, I'm at a point where I think I might listen, man. At this rate, based off what we saw yesterday, based off the information that we know, you might as well pencil that as a damn loss. Let's be honest. It's Monday and I'm already penciling in. But you know what? I'm gonna say my prediction for Friday. But the reality is, we have to trust what our eyes are seeing. And Eagles fans, I'm asking y'all in the live chat: do you trust Nick Sirianni and Brian Johnson today? Today, do you trust them today?
How about this one, Nick Sirianni? I like that reel.
Seriously, Nick Sirianni.
Nick Sirianni. Holy, hey, no way. Listen, absolutely not, Green. This team is not an 8-9 team. That's not at all what I'm saying. It's exactly what Tone is saying. What Tone is saying here, and I'm not speaking for you, Tone, but how I took it was that the coaching staff, in a critical situation against the Bills, against the Chiefs, against maybe potentially the 49ers. Hey, and by the way, the 49ers, we'll get more into this, but they lost Trent Williams, they lost Christian McCaffrey and Debo. Yep. All in like a sequence. Now, Williams went back in the game, and you're going against a historic defense. They're giving the least amount of points up since the Purple People Leaders of 1970, the Minnesota Vikings.
That defense won that game for them.
Hey, I'm going to tell you this. That Myles Garrett's the best football player defensively in the National Football League.
Dog. I love Myles Garrett. I don't care what. Listen, people talk about TJ Watt and Bosa. I get it. But Myles Garrett, he does everything. He has the size. He plays the run. He gets sacks. Myles Garrett is a freak. He's a force of nature, and he stays healthy. Like, that's the thing too.
Look, moving forward from this,
I'm concerned. Sills in the long.
What's the biggest concern for you?
I'm concerned that this coaching staff, the offense. I'm concerned that the offensive coaching staff,
I see 85,
are leading with arrogance rather than trying to win the game.
Is that Howie?
I don't think it's Howie on game day, but I think it's Howie inspired, if that makes sense.
Completely. Actually, true.
Because Jeffrey Lurie said it. He said it in the exit interviews after they fired Doug. He said, "We want a high-powered passing offense." Well, if that was the case, why the hell did you give Jalen Hurts the $50 million deal? If that's the kind of quarterback you wanted.
Because this is what they're trying to make. They're trying to mold this guy into that.
It's not what he is.
Not that.
It's not what he is. Listen, I'm a Jalen Hurts guy. It's not what he is. I'm not tasking Jalen Hurts with throwing the ball 50 times a game. I'm not. That's not who he is. It's not. Jalen Hurts is a dual threat guy.
Jalen Hurts needed to have 30 attempts in that game for 240, 230 yards, 16 carries for about 70. They'd have beat him by 10. They'd have beat him by 10.
They overthought the game. They overthought it. I said this on Friday. I said, look, all you have to do is run the ball and allow things to open up. But no, they fell in love with the scouting report. They fell in love with the injury report. Oh, Sauce Gardner's not playing. Oh, we airing it out. Oh, they're starting nickel and their other corners are starting. Oh, we're airing it out. Hell to the no, no, no. That can't happen. It's embarrassing. It was
Let me show
embarrassing.
you
I'll
this.
admit. It was embarrassing.
Let me show you this with the Dolphins rolling up now.
Oh
Dolphins
my
are
God.
number 1 in passing, 316. They're number 1. I don't know if I've ever really seen this since maybe the Rams team with Kurt Warner when they had Marshall Faulk and them guys. So you're number 1 in passing, and you're number 1 in rushing, and you're number 1 in rushing by a lot. And you know what people say? They go, well, they put up a shitload of points and this and that versus the Broncos. They had their starters out in the third quarter. Tua was pulled in the third at the beginning of the third. Okay? So Tua was already doing that damage on that team. They yanked them off the field. They didn't even play a second half. They did that damage, most of that damage, Tone, in the first half. It was like 54-0. I mean, so when you say that, they crushed that team in the first half. And when you're – look, this is an average of 181 for 6 games. This ain't just one ball game here. And then on top of that, you go on the other side. Our boy Vic Fangio is 3rd in sacks ahead of the Eagles by 1 with 21. So let's say this. They bring pressure. They get home. They throw the ball all over the yard, and they run the ball all over the yard. And if you know what they're going to try to do? The Eagles are going to try to get into a shootout with that team, and they're going to get blown out.
They should not do that. They should not do that. See, this is the ego part I'm talking about here. This is the pride and
they're going to get blown out.
The arrogance. You don't have to go into that just because they do one thing well. That don't mean you have to match them in that. You have to impose your will. You have to force the action. So the way I see it, because they thrive on scoring quickly and they thrive on this high-flying offense, and they got those guys, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Watt on the outside, and they got Raheem Mostert back there. They're going to be without Devon Achane because he's on IR, but the reality is that rushing attack is still there. But I'm going to get into that game trying to limit their possessions. I want them to treat every possession like it's a crown jewel, because you don't get too many crown jewels. There's only a few of them in the world. So my point is, limit their possessions, impose your will on them, beat them up.
Yeah.
Beat them up. This is Philadelphia. We're not LA. You know what I'm saying? Like, stop trying to bring that LA play calling lifestyle.
Is Ramsey
to
taking
Philly.
snaps this week?
Say that one more time.
Is Jalen Ramsey taking snaps this week? We're going to get more from Armando.
He's not ready. He won't be ready until about maybe November, December. He's not going to be ready yet.
Again, a team like you've got to limit Miami the same way you try to limit Mahomes.
Yes.
You have to have more offensive plays. You know, when you look at the sheet too here, man, for the game, I mean, Tone, the Jets ran 59 plays and beat you. That's unheard of. Do you
Less
understand?
than 250 yards of offense.
Basically, like, that's 13 plays a quarter. It's like 13. It's like 15 plays, 14 plays a quarter that you get, which is probably what? 2 series?
That's like one drive a quarter.
Half.
Yeah. It's like one drive a quarter. Like, if you think about it.
It's like one drive a quarter and they beat you.
But when you turn the ball over 4 times, you gave them extra. See, the turnovers are so. If the Eagles don't
turnovers at 3 and outs is what's killing them.
Yep. And on top of that, Zach Wilson wasn't impressive at all. But you know the one thing he didn't do? He didn't turn the ball over. And that's where that game was won and lost, man. I
mean, look at Hall. Hall had 12 carries, 39 yards. The kid Wilson was good, 8 catches, 90. But dude, nobody. I mean, Hurts had 8 carries, almost 50 yards. Had 280 yards passing. The interceptions, obviously, and the 45 attempts. When you compile that with the turnovers and the amount of 3 and outs you had, and the short fields, game.
This game. Like, they drove the field maybe once, if that. Like, I mean, I don't even know. That's it seemed like every time they had the ball, they were on.
Come away from that game going like this, man. The Jets dominated them.
No, No, they were opportunistic, and I give them credit for it. They were opportunistic, and we literally handed them the game, literally handed it to them.
How about Robert Saleh saying he embarrassed Hurts?
Listen, Robert, your season is much longer than this. Okay, you're going to get embarrassed a lot more. So just relax. Okay, I understand you're riding on your high horse and all that kind of stuff. Look, dude, you won. So listen, to the victor goes the spoils. It is what it is. We got to wear that. But dude, relax. Relax.
Here's how I'm going to handle. So this 49er game. Today is a day to dissect. Tomorrow's a day to reflect on what you're going to do and how you're going to go forward from this.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what would be your
this is out of sight tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I was going to ask you what would be your course of action, because after the game was over, they AJ Brown, Devontae Smith, Haason Reddick, Jason Kelsey, those key guys, they spoke in front of the team in the locker room after the game, and they addressed everybody. So Sirianni mentioned that, and they felt like they didn't want Sirianni to talk. They said, "We got this," because we know we went wrong yesterday. So, look, man, how would you respond as a player? Matter of fact, I want you to give me two minds here, Sills. Give me two minds. How would you respond as a player, and how would you respond if you were coaching that team? Give me those two competing thoughts.
I would be completely pissed off if I was a player that I let an opportunity to get away and a team beat me that was a lesser team than me. I don't mind getting into wars with the 49ers, Bills, teams like that are on my page and on my level and on my tier. You get beat in the NFL, hey, man, they get paid too. So you've got to always remember they get paid too. But what my problem becomes is when you make critical mistakes as a player and the coaches are making critical calls that are mistakes in games, then all of a sudden it becomes this, oh my God, the field goal kicker misses. And it becomes contagious for those 4 quarters that everything is falling in on us. And then when you make that final disastrous play call and the player throwing the pick and the whole thing going down the other way and they score and they win, it is just an absolute frustrating day. And you're just so pissed off. For coaches to have to address that with players, it's embarrassing. It's completely embarrassing. Like, again, I use mine, and Jimmy, who wrote the book Swagger,
right,
said it. His greatest loss was that national title game that I was in, and he couldn't even look at us in the face because he was so embarrassed on how the play calling went, and it was just so horrific. We had 8 turnovers in that game. We only gave up 100 yards in offense and lost. And I was like this, man, these guys better not say it. Jerome and I looked at him right in the face, and those coaches, Jimmy said it. He goes like this, I can't even look at you guys. I'm so sorry. As a coach, you feel disappointed that you did not help your players enough to win the game. You actually were part of the reason that the game was lost. Coaches never want to be in a position, and let me tell you something. I can't tell you how many times, Tone, I've seen grown men and legendary coaches like Tom Landry or whomever crying after games because they put their heart and soul into it. I've seen Jimmy cry. I've seen Tom Landry cry. I've seen some of the biggest names in coaching cry after a game and the assistants, because it's not that they're sad because they lost. They put so much energy into those games to help their players win. When they put those players in positions to lose, it's devastating to those guys. I actually felt bad for my coaches because I know how hard they worked, because we're all in it together, dude. So what you have to do as a unit, hey, you got to go forward with it. You got to move forward, and you got to do it together. The worst thing that can happen now is that you start fracturing off. Well, the defense is here. You know, one thing I'll tell you about Aaron Rodgers did, I got to give it to him. You know, Aaron Rodgers is talking shit on the Jets when he was in Malibu, Well, ever since he left Malibu and has been on the sidelines with the Jets, I heard he was making some situational play calls during the game for Zach Wilson to make some play calls and helping out Nathaniel Hackett. To me, I think his presence being there galvanized the entire group, and they've played better since he's been on the sidelines. And to me, you have to have a linchpin bring it all together. And I think the quarterback is that guy. So I would say, again, it's really emotional, Tone, when you put so much of that shit. But here, tomorrow's Tuesday, it's Players' Day off. What you do tomorrow is, man, today is Monday. And after a Sunday game, you come in, you watch film in the morning, you break down to your position coaches, then you go out, you have a run, you take a shower, you have a steam, whatever, you work out a little bit, then you get Players' Day off tomorrow. And you get that time to reflect and put that shit behind you. But also, if you're a team like I think the Eagles are, you can't wait for Wednesday's practice.
You see, that's powerful right there to me because you've lived it. You've been there. You've been through the ups.
I would say that Eagle team, those guys cannot wait to get on the practice field. You see, if you're a sorry-ass team, you're dreading going to work on Wednesday.
I think that's the saving grace. I think that's the saving grace for this team because they're led so well from a personnel standpoint. That's the saving grace. And I think that's what I hang my hat on right now, especially on the offensive side of the ball. I don't hang my hat on Brian Johnson right now.
But that becomes part of something that you have to evaluate tomorrow as a player.
Right.
Because internally, here's how, look, if I walked into that facility on Wednesday, I'd be like this on Saturday, probably talking to my wife because she's been around football. I believe these wives are important because players don't want to show weakness and calling players and talking shit to one another. So what they do is they talk to their spouse who's been around them most likely for 20 years. And what you say is, man, this guy's just not putting us in a good position, but we have Stoutland here. I'm going to have a talk with Jeff. And you know what, man? When we're in a position like that again, why aren't we fucking running the ball, dude? Why are we doing these other half-ass baked things? And I go, so what you do is you have conversations with yourself first, then as a group, when you're working out together, then you go to your position coach. And then you know what your position coach does? He goes to the coaches' meetings, and Stoutland will go like this to Brian Johnson and to Nick Sirianni in that coaches' meeting. They'll all sit around and go, hey, I'll tell you what the guys are saying. They want to run the ball. These guys want to run the ball. And they're until they get Lane back, until they get all their horses back, they want to run the ball. And I think we should do this too, because this is what they're set on. This is what they want to do. We got too many young guys right now that have to get this. Like you said, 2 sacks. Shit, the Jets felt like they had 20 sacks in that game. It just felt like so the Eagles had 5. They had 5 sacks, and get this, lost. And the Jets had 2. And it felt like they had 22. More pressures on a quarterback in Philadelphia since 2017, which was 20. And you want a young group to pass protect and get away from, hey, well, our entire right side. All right. Then load up on the left side and run it. The Jets were vulnerable for the run. It's just their in-game decision-making as coaches are putting those players. And you know what happens after a while too, Tone, as a player? You start losing faith that in a game, because what you don't want to have happen, the worst thing that could happen to this Eagle team is that Miami blows them out or beats them bad, because then you're going to go in there and it's going to take a lot of metal for you not to go like this. Man, these guys are hurting us.
Like, I think they can bounce back from this one, but if they get cracked by the Dolphins, I think that's going to be a hard one to bounce back from. I think that's going to be a hard one because that's a real team right there. And then you're going to wake up and realize, damn, we're not as good as we thought. See, at least with the Jets loss, you can say, you know what, we didn't show up. We can say that. But if they lose to the Miami Dolphins, like if they get smacked like the Cowboys did to the 49ers, if they get beat like that, then they have to really look in the mirror and say, okay, we got some real issues. Because that's who we're measuring ourselves up against, right? You said it earlier. You lose to a good team, okay, all right. You lose to a bad team, you're like, what the hell happened? They know how good they are, but they're going to find out how good they are when they go up against this Miami Dolphins team, because this team is coming. They're bringing Miami to Philly. It's going to get wicked. And I'm super curious to see what the offensive game plan is going to be. The game plan this week is going to tell me a lot about who these coaches are.
You know, somebody was in here saying that, you know, any given Sunday. No, that wasn't any given Sunday.
I wouldn't put it
that was
way.
Players that were out and injured. That was shitty play calling, and it was Hurts not playing well. Somebody in here said Dan's been trying to put it on Jalen Hurts the entire time. Not true. But he cost them that game. And he kept them in that game. It's totally what you saw in that game. And the coaches hurt him. And the injuries hurt him. The drop passes by Devontae. Worst game as an Eagle. Would you agree?
Worst game. I've never seen Devontae look. He looked like this is about to be crazy, but he looked like Jalen Reagor. Like,
Holy
I was
cow,
like,
man. I didn't think you'd go there, though.
Yo, Sills.
Yeah.
Even the Mark Sanchez was like, yo, he had 10 yards of space, and from every angle, he could have caught the ball, knitted a sweater, cooked breakfast, did a couple backflips. He had that much time and space to catch those rocks. And look, I'm not going to hold it against him. Everyone's entitled to a bad game, right? You know, Jamar Chase was non-existent for the first part of the season, so it happens, right? So I'm not. So the Jalen Reagor comment was a little over the top. I'll give you that. I was playing too much, but the reality is,
85.
He had a bad game.
PJ Walker's better than Zach Wilson.
He had a bad. Yeah, PJ Walker's way better than Zach Wilson. But look, Devontae had a bad game, man. I'm not going to charge it to him, but it's just that his drops were so critical, and I think that's what my issue was. But he's a guy that I trust is going to clean it up. So I don't worry about him in the long run. But again, this offensive coaching staff, Nick Sirianni, Brian Johnson, those guys concern me, man. They concern me because, again, you have the personnel. My concern is they're going to outcoach themselves.
Yes.
That's my problem. They're going to overthink the situation. But
Nick Sirianni tomorrow at the press conference. I could just see it. This is all on me.
Nick Sirianni and Crying Johnson.
Nick Scary. Hey, these guys make a good Halloween duo, man. Holy cow, they're perpetrating themselves as coaches. You might want to have a conversation with your coaching staff today without Howie in the room, too. That you have to, guys, have to put these players in a better position. Like I said to you in closing here, you know what, man? If I'm a heavyweight champion and I'm a knockout artist, I ain't trying to spar with you, my friend. I'm going to try to throw haymakers and knock the shit out of you. And the Eagles throw haymakers. They don't spar. Mm-hmm. They knock you out. They sparred with they fought Floyd Mayweather and they were George Foreman. And Floyd Mayweather wore you out in the end.
Man, Sills, my final word is this. This is the kind of loss that can either embolden you or it'll force you to curl up in the corner. I trust this personnel. I trust Jalen Hurts. I trust Jason Kelce. I trust Hassan Reddick. I trust the leaders on this team, Fletcher Cox and all those boys, Lane Johnson. I trust those guys to remind this team of who they are and where they want to go. Because the reality is, you got to check yourself. Where do we want to go? Who do we want to be? Do we want to be the Jets? Is that who we are? Or are we trying to make some noise in the playoffs and actually win the Super Bowl? Who do we want to be? What do you want to be remembered as? Do you want to be remembered as the team that drops the ball when it matters most? Do you want to be remembered as a team that can't get out of their own way?
I'll tell you are. You're 21-2.
So I'm done with you, man.
Hey,
I'm done with you, man.
Good stuff, my friend. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you, Sills, man. It's always a pleasure, man. It's always fun, man. Hell of a talk, man. We learned a lot about these Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. But again, man, to the victor goes the spoils. The Jets get to enjoy this for the next couple of days. On to Miami, man. Let's get it done because I'm nervous.
Yeah, this is going to be interesting, man. I'm going to tell you something, too, when we come back out of the timeout here. What I don't want to see. I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much, Tone. Hey, our good friends, do me a favor. Our friends at Hooters here. Our winners, congratulations to a couple of our winners here from last week's drawing. We'll start it up again tomorrow. All you have to do is send information to our email, and we're going to throw a code word out tomorrow. Then you can maybe become a winner like those fellows right there. Dan Sileo Show at gmail.com for your chance to win There'll be a code word tomorrow throughout the entire 4 hours. All you have to do is identify it, and you could be a winner like Daniel and Darren for you to be able to get those gift certificates. And we announce the winners each and every single Monday on a Football Monday. Also, Monday Night Football tonight. Make sure you get into any one of the Northeast Hooters locations at northeasthooters.com. Find that location nearest you. The 40th anniversary, Hooters and football, they go together, right? Along with the iconic Hooter girls, man. Do me a favor. Go into any one of the locations. If you don't want to go in, go to the app, HootersToGo.com. Tuesdays, some of the great 40-year traditions. Tuesdays, buy 10 wings, 10 boneless. Wing Wednesdays, a 40-year tradition that's been going on since the inception, 1983. That's how much it cost. Simple, $19.83, all you can eat. Kids eat for free on Saturdays. NortheastHooters.com. That's NortheastHooters.com. Do me a favor. When you roll into any one of the Hooters, you tell them Big Sil sent you.
Football and Hooters, the perfect pair.